Hey everyone, I am Complex and I am excited to finally release a project that I've spent countless hours over the past few months working on, my trading card investment spreadsheets. This project actually comes with two spreadsheets, one for sports cards and another for Pokemon. For those who aren't familiar with me, perhaps never heard of my name before, I release spreadsheets, guides, and tutorials for many of my hobbies or requests from y'all through my Google form or down in the comment section below. My most popular and passionate project thus far has been my CS investing spreadsheet, now in its fourth version. However, this project is not just some replica. I've completely revamped it with tons of new features for a better and more detailed analysis. So, if you'd like to see this sheet adapted towards Counter-Strike or any other collectible investment, please let me know. Before we dive into the tutorial, a quick note that this will be my first spreadsheet available for sale on my Patreon. There will be a link in the description to my Patreon where you can view not just this spreadsheet, but every project and tutorial I've posted so far. You can scroll down and discover tons of spreadsheets available for download once you have created your Patreon account. However, due to the countless hours I've put into this project, I'm going to set a small one-time fee for downloading both spreadsheets. This video will be split into two parts, an overview showcasing the features, and the second providing a step-by-step tutorial for the spreadsheet. If you are intrigued in debating purchasing the spreadsheet, be sure to at least watch the overview. And if you already purchased the sheet or want to purchase the sheet, feel free to skip ahead to the tutorial using the timestamp shown on screen and then in the description of this video. Now, let's address the question. What exactly does this spreadsheet offer? And more importantly, why is it worth spending any money on? The easiest way for me to answer these questions is with a breakdown of exactly what the workbook's features and capabilities are, and then we can get into a tutorial. When you download either file, the workbook will open with an introduction tab where you'll see a color key, keywords, and instruction headers. You'll be able to easily access this video later on to ask questions in the comment section or rewatch segments of this video. I'll reference the color key and the utilization of customizable keywords during the tutorial. This workbook consists of two main components, data entry and analysis pages. Like any other investment spreadsheet, there are dedicated sheets to input your data, per card details, buy and sell info, as well as per card profit metrics for sold items will be stored in the inventory ledger. Now, unlike other spreadsheets, this workbook includes a trade ledger, which you can use to record when you make a trade with another person. This includes cards and/or cash received in the trade, and then the corresponding cards and/or cash delivered in the trade. There is also columns for general profit information per trade that you make. Finally, there is data entry for comps so you can record the updated prices of your collection and have them available for easy use later on. For analysis, the investment tracker records all transaction totals for sales and profit information and then categorizes it into separate sections for the data entry tabs, buy and sell, trades, and comps. There's also a breakdown of revenue and profit by month over the past year. You will be able to configure this model to calculate in a month over month or year to date format. The Favorites tab pulls any card identified as a favorite in the inventory ledger for easy viewing. And finally, Core Holdings shows you the highest number of cards based on customizable search criteria. By default, the results are displayed in descending order, but you can apply your own sorting preferences to this analysis model. And with that, we are finally going to jump into the tutorial. For this tutorial, I'll be using the sports card file as an example, but this process also applies to the Pokemon spreadsheet as well. The only differences between the spreadsheets are the columns related to card details. For sports cards, there are more columns covering aspects like year, brand, player name, if there's a color variation, the card type, whether the card is a rookie, autographed, or contains a patch, if the card is numbered out of 10, 20, or any other number, the actual serial number of the card, whether the card was graded by a company, and the respective card grade and autograph grade for that card. For Pokemon cards, the structure is more condensed with fewer columns, as we only need to cover the year, generation, the Pokemon, if it's a level EX, X, or any other number, the rarity of the card, if it's a holo, double rare, illustration rare, or SIR, the set that the card is from, the card serial number, and then if there's a grading company and card grade for that card as well. Throughout the tutorial, I'll refer to the Pokemon file to highlight the column differences at each step. At the end, I'll quickly show through my own workbooks to show hundreds of my own cards and show out what a filled out analysis section will look like. So let's begin this tutorial by inputting this Brock Purdy Donruss rated rookie into the workbook. Similarly, if you have a Pokemon card, you can input that into the Pokemon spreadsheet under the same light blue header signifying card details input cells. Extracting info from the card, we can input that the card is year 2022, that is Panini Donruss. You can also just keep it as Donruss. However, I like to be as specific as possible. That way I can later filter and sort the brand by either Panini to see all Panini products, or to actually filter by Donruss to only see the Donruss cards that I own. The player is pretty. Color variation, we're going to leave blank as there is not one. This is why this card's a great example. Type, again, we are also going to leave blank. Auto patch, we are going to put in rated rookie. Our card is not numbered, so again, we leave these cells blank. Card number 374. And I don't really care to copy this information, so you can always just minimize it and not have to actually keep track of it at all. Grade company, our card is graded with PSA and it does not have an. So that is all the card details. Now, let's move on to the purchase and sales information, which is under the light gray header. While I do not own this card, I'm going to make up a scenario where I purchase this card off eBay for $15. Purchase location. We're going to skip trade group, and we'll get back to that very, very shortly. The purchase date, we bought that January 1st of the year, and again, we paid $15. You'll now see when we go over to the far right that we have this card as owned. And you will also be able to see some general information about the card listing, which you can copy and paste this into eBay if you ever decide to sell the card as the exact listing name that you are going to want, as well as a card ID. And again, we will get back to this very, very shortly. Now, in a typical buy and sell scenario, let's say that I sell this card on January 10th, 9 days later, for $25 after he had a really good game. We are going to go into that same purchase and sales information. Sales location is going to be again. Sales date is going to be the 10th. And again, we sold it for $25. I can also know any shipping costs or other fees associated with the sale. If you don't want to keep track of this again, hit the little minus sign at the top. It's going to completely minimize the amount and you won't have to look at this information. But for some people who pay their own shipping costs, you may want to note that it costed $5 to ship out. That is going to subtract away from the profit that you made on this sale, or any other fees with advertising cost and the business that you run. After this, the sheet will automatically calculate how long that you own the item, the profit, and the return on investment for that profit. You'll also note that the card now says sold in that final column. And that's as simple of a transaction that you can really have. So now let's go back and complicate it a little bit. What happens if this is a card that I maybe have owned for years? I did not buy this on January 1st. Maybe I've owned it since I was a child. This is where keywords are going to come in to play, which you saw on the introduction tab, where you can use the keywords unknown in either price paid or the purchase date to signify that you do not know when or for how much you bought this card. And that is going to do a few things. If you put it in purchase date and I type in unknown, which is our keyword, it is going to gray out the column for the duration of days because we do not know how long this item has been in our collection or then eventually sold for. If you decide to put it in price paid, it will also gray out the profit. And it really is up to you whether you want to use or leave it blank. If you leave it blank, it is just not going to be grayed out and it'll just be blank there in profit and ROI. I like having as much information as possible because sometimes I get lazy and I just forget to input data into my spreadsheet. When I input the word unknown or any other keyword that you change it to, it makes it very, very easy to know, hey, what information have Recorded, and what information have I still have to figure out and eventually put into the workbook. Going back to keywords again, the card sold column, you can also edit these both identifiers as owned and sold. For whatever reason, if you do not like those two words, you can change them to whatever you want. Just make sure owned is the actual identifier that you still own this card, and sold is that it's no longer in your collection. You can't switch these and make sold the first one and own the second one. It's going to break a lot of formulas later in the workbook. Now, let's use an example where we sold this card as part of a trade. In sales location, we're going to switch eBay to local card shop, LCS, dash trade. Trade, as well as the separator dash, informs the workbook that this card is being sold as part of a trade. If you go back to the intro tab, these are both keywords that are allowed to be changed by you, the user. Trade is pretty standard. I'd recommend keeping this one the same, but you can use a dash, a tilde, brackets, just a straight line going up and down, whatever type of differentiator you want to use. Just make sure you're staying consistent throughout the entire uses of the workbook. Whatever is in your keywords, make sure you're using that in your inventory ledger. Secondly, we're going to have to identify the trade group number. Simply put, this is our, so it is going to be number 1. And in this example, I'm going to be doing a 1-for-1 trade, but this workbook supports trades where you could be sending 100 cards or receiving 100 cards. So for as many cards that you're going to be selling as part of this first trade, you would be having go all the way down. Second trade in cards that you different, use 2. And the same goes for the trade group for purchase, but we'll get into that in 1 second because we're actually going to have to make up a card that we're going to receive in this hypothetical situation. We're also going to remove our value from shipping cost, even though the formula automatically removes it. We're not going to be inputting shipping and other fees, mainly because if you're doing a trade and you have a larger scale trade where maybe you're receiving 5 cards, you're sending out 5 cards, something around there, you're only going to have one total shipping cost for the entire trade, and we'll get to that shortly. So we're actually going to minimize this entire column, but we have our information for sales. Just notice now we still have a price sold value in our sales columns. It is valued though. That is what the card you believe is worth, not what you believe you're getting for it. Obviously, in a trade, the card could be worth 25, but you might get an offer for 30 if the card is really, really demanded, or you might get an offer for $20 if the card is not as valued. But we're going to move on and we're going to grab the card ID that is all the way over in this right-hand side table, and we're going to copy it and drag it into the trade ledger. Under card ID delivered, because these are the cards that we're selling away, we're going to paste see all the information that we input about the cards are going to be moved into this workbook. But before we get on, we need to now fill in information for a card that, again, I will be hypothetically receiving. So in this situation, I'm just going to input quick details and something I'm not even going to be too worried about. It's going to be a Panini Phoenix Micah Parsons. And again, I'm trying to input some mints so each card has something that I've had. And again, we'll make the card as there you go. For purchase information, a lot of this can be copied and pasted because the purchase location is going to be the same as our sales because it's a trade. Again, this is going to be the first trade we are making. We are actually receiving cards, and obviously the date is going to be the same. And this is where we're going to be determined again the value of the card that we are receiving. Again, not what we are paying for it, but the value that we believe that if we wanted to resell, what is the current market of this card on this exact day. So in this case, I'm actually going to say that the value is $30 and differentiate it so that we see in an example where we'll have profit on both the inventory ledger and the trade ledger. And I'm going to leave a lot of the sales information here blank because we're not going to have that. And then I'm going to, again, go right over to the card ID. We're going to copy that value because it's the card we're receiving. Go into the trade ledger, card ID received, and we're going to get that value. Now you'll see all the information is booked, and we can input if we receive cash in the trade. And this trade is going to make no sense, but I'm going to have it that we receive and deliver a dollar. Obviously, in a trade, you're not going to give and receive cash because you would just subtract it from one of the amounts that you either delivered or received. But again, I just want you guys to see that every single possibility is available. You could deliver 100 cards, you could receive 100 cards. I'm doing as basic as an example gets, so we are not here for hours going through a tutorial of what this might look like. You'll see once you get IDs delivered and received in, these will not be dark gray anymore. So you can have your cash delivered and your received. And shipping costs will also come up. So you can put a $5 shipping cost, maybe, if you're doing a trade online over eBay DMs or something like that, or any of these other apps, you can have shipping costs. This one is a local card shop, so we're just going to remove it there. Trade location and trade date are both going to be pulled one time. So again, if you have multiple cards that you're going to be receiving here, you're only going to see cash delivered, shipping costs, other fees, location, and date once for the entire trade. You're not going to see it every single time because it is once per transaction. And then again, you will get your duration for days. This will be per card. So for every single card that you are delivering out, you're going to have a duration based on how long that you held the cards that you are selling. Profit and ROI though, that again will be once per trade. And that is how to use the trade ledger. Again, this is very, very basic. You can go up to as many cards as you want. Again, if you had a card that you wanted to receive, again, I'm just going to type in, say, Panini. I'm just going to do another Brock Purdy. Just a little easier. Again, we'll make this a rated rookie. Not going to be PSA, just a base card. And again, maybe we receive this trade just to give you of a description. Maybe this one's worth like $1. And we could copy this one over here. And now notices that this is part of the same trade. Go into our trade ledger. We paste it right over here. And we have another trade. Again, you will only have one trade ID and one cash received. And again, all this stuff will only be one. But again, this is going to be great. I'm going to get into this a little bit later in the last part of the video with filtering and all that type of great stuff, where you'll really be able to tailor this workbook to yourself so that you can analyze exactly how you're doing depending on different times of the year, what cards you're getting rid of, bigger trades versus smaller trades, all that type of good information that you may have as either a business holder or just doing this as a hobby. And finally, using those same IDs that we copied over for our trade ID ledger, if we copy over, I'm going to do the Micah Parsons one again to our comps page. We're going to again paste that over into card ID, paste the value, and it is going to pull all the information that we put in the inventory ledger. So if I hit the plus sign right here, it'll show again all the information that you input into card details. Again, I'm just leaving it minimized because I don't need to see all of it right now. I'm really focused on when I bought it and how much for. And you're going to be able to input the website, date, and price. So maybe I comped it on eBay on the 11th, a day later, or let's make it like an entire month later because time went by and it's now worth $40. So this will give you estimates as for how long you're going to own the card, your profit and ROI based on this selling for these prices. So again, this is nothing too accurate. Again, this does not going to take into account shipping costs because it does not know whether you're going to sell this in person or online. And this may not be the actual price of the card that you're getting, but in order to easily keep track of your cards and what the value of your collection is, this is a page to be able to help you do that. And at the end, if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You don't have to use this page at all. But some people who like to keep updated records of their collection, this is definitely helpful. And finally, we're going to turn into the few analysis pages. But obviously with this workbook, we're not going to have too much information because we only have 3 cards listed. So there's not going to be much of analysis, but I'll show you what it should look like and what different information you're going to be able to change. As mentioned in the overview, the investment tracker records all your buy, sale, and profit information. As you begin to input your cards, the model will calculate these values based on your collection. At the top of the page, there's analysis of your overall collection. This includes the current portfolio value, the current cash invested, the total cash received and invested, the total fees and a breakdown between shipping and other fees, net sale proceeds, profit, and ROI. To the right, this analysis is broken down by ledger category, buy and sell, trades, and comps. You'll be able to compare how your collection is performing in trades compared to traditional buy and sell in terms of ROI, profit, fees, amount invested, number of cards, and some other variables. And at the bottom, there is a table with a few reflected graphs showcasing the last year of your investment portfolio. And there are two inputs that are able to be customized based on keywords in the introduction tab. First is recent date. At the start, the analysis is going to be conducted with the last day of the previous month. If you would like to change this analysis so that it starts before the last day of the previous month, you could type in an earlier date. So I'm going to use a summer month so that it starts a year back earlier in the year. I'm going to then leave it blank for this next example. So I'll leave an updated date. And by the way, I am filming this video on Halloween. So it is October 31st for everyone who is interested in terms of the timeline here. You could also change month to month or year to date. Month to month, we'll calculate it as, and we only have 3 cards here. Each month, you'll see the exact amount that you have invested, current fees, net sale proceeds, and profit. Each month will be in a different value. However, if you go year to date, you're going to notice all the months after January, because that is when we bought our first card, are going to have those values and most likely going upward. So depending if you want to see the growth of your collection versus how it does compared to each month of the year, you have the ability to change year to date and month to month, and the graphs will reflect those changes. Secondly, while I skipped over favorites when I was inputting the details of my cards, this is a tab that you can favorite based on your keyword. So I'm going to go back and copy my star, which is my key indicator, in your inventory ledger, and I'm going to mark a card as a favorite. When you go to the favorite tabs, this is just going to pull all of the data from your inventory ledger plus the comp value for that. So this is a great tab to have all that information for a very select few cards that you can see at once. While you will be able to filter your inventory ledger when you have hundreds of cards, this is great so you don't have to constantly have it filtered, that you can just pull up your favorites tab and see these are your top cards that you love or maybe are keeping track of the prices on at one time. Last but not least, core holdings will display your most abundant cards in your collection. Using the keyword common, the model will display the results in descending order for your top 10 most owned cards according to the search criteria. However, for all options besides ear, you can edit these boxes using the word input to assign manual inputs that you can type below in the manual input boxes. Input for date will start with the current year in descending order as opposed to common, which will put the cards in the year that you have the most of at the top. So right now we have the most of 2022, but if you decided to switch this to input, it is going to start with 2024, going back to 10 years, and you'll notice that obviously our values don't change, but we're going to have some blanks because we did not input any cards that were owned in 2024 or 2023 in our inventory ledger. For brand, player, rookie card grading card grade, this is really up to you whether you want to use comment or inputs. Really, it is different for me depending on what I'm looking to get out of the analysis. Comment is definitely great for if you just want to see what you have the most of, but maybe players one day you want to go in and just keep track of the star quarterbacks. You want to look at your Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrows, and you want to see how many cards you have of those players at one time. And you might not have top 10 of those cards because you have a lot of other different rookies and other players, but you still want to see how many of those cards you have. You can change this to input and then you can type in the name of the player that you want at the bottom. So obviously we don't have any Patrick Mahomes, but if I typed in Micah Parsons, we do have one and the workbook will recognize that. And obviously, again, I have some manual inputs with some default values that I thought would be helpful for you guys, but feel free to change these values to whatever you like. But once again, as I've said probably 100 times in this video, make sure they match what you're using in the inventory ledger. This rookie, auto, patch, etc. column is going to directly link what is in this column here. So if you use something in core holdings, but you don't use it here, it is not going to realize if you change the spelling or used a different word, even though you meant the same thing. So just stay consistent on what you're doing throughout the entire workbook and you will have no issues. And finally, I'm going to put up my workbook in just a second here, and I'm going to go through some tips and tricks with filtering and show you guys what a filled out workbook is going to look like. And for the last part of the video, I wanted to showcase both my sports card and Pokemon inventory ledger so you could see countless examples of what filled out card details look like for both spreadsheets, and a few tips and tricks on how to use filters effectively so that you could really hone in and analyze specific components of your collection. One of my most favorite filters is using the card sold filter and selecting owned. Obviously, I do not have any purchase information or sales information into this. It would take way too much time for me to get all that info into here. So you won't see the word sold, but filtering out sold so you're looking on a day-to-day basis of cards that are in your inventory and that you could potentially sell. You could also filter any column for whatever reason. Some of my most favorites are obviously filtering by player, filtering by brand, and if you were as specific as I was and you have all these Panini, you can filter just so you have Panini products, and you can get rid of your Leaf, Bowman, Tops, all those other products, just so we're at Panini products across all their different. You can also filter in by number. You can filter by rookie card, and again, you can keep this as general as you want, so it's selecting a lot of different criteria, or just a few. But I really quickly I want to remove some of these filters. Just scroll to show you what tons of examples that every single card that you own can be inputted into this workbook. Yes, some of them are going to be a little bit interesting depending on how many names they have. You got to get a little bit imaginative and put it in color variation or type. But every single card that I own, and I own hundreds of cards, they all fit into this without an issue, and you will be able to use this workbook as much as you like. I also have favorites hooked up, so I can actually show my favorites tab, and then you'll see that I have tons of cards from favorites being pulled in here, that these are the ones that I want to track on an everyday basis. But I'm also going to show my Pokemon card spreadsheet because I focused a lot on my sports card spreadsheet, but the Pokemon one is an exact mimic of it. Obviously, you'll notice the card details looks a little bit different because you're inputting different information into this, and there is a lot of rarities that I have not filled out, and I definitely have to go back through and input a lot more information. But once again, you can have first edition cards, base sets, Japanese, English, every single type of Pokemon card, whether it's promos, you can input that into here based on your own preferences. And do you have to put a black star like I did on this Pokemon card number? No, but that is what works for me, and that is how I'm able to identify it and easily know that this is the card that I think it is. So again, have fun with it. Definitely make it your own. There's a lot to take and put your own spin on it, but just make sure you're staying consistent. And again, if you have any questions on how to use this workbook, feel free to let me know in the YouTube comment section. Reach out to me on Discord. I also have my own Discord. You can reach out and answer questions. There will be updates being released on the spreadsheet. And the good news is, once you have paid for it once, all updates will be reposted to that same shop link. You're going to be able to re-download that spreadsheet for free and just copy and paste all of your information into the new one. You can get quickly Control A, Control C, and you'll be able to post it into the new one. And every part of the analysis will rerun for you. It won't take more than a few moments. But thank you so much for watching. Again, if anyone does have questions, please reach out. And I will see you in the next video. Peace out. See y'all next time.